Multiplying a decimal with a whole number is very similar to how we multiply two whole numbers. We first multiply the decimal and the whole number as if we were multiplying two whole numbers, and once we have the result, then we account for the decimal places. So let's look at an example of multiplying a decimal number by a whole number. So I have 1.85, so there's my decimal number, times 25. And I want to find my answer. So first of all, what I want to do is I want to count in my two numbers, in this case just in my one number, how many digits I have to the right of the decimal point. So how many decimal digits I have. In this case, I only have decimals in this number, and I have two digits to the right of the decimal point after 1.85. So I'm going to go over here and make myself a little number 2, just to remind myself, just as a little note, that I want to remember that I have two digits to the right of the decimal point, because in my answer I have to make sure that I also have two digits to the right of my decimal point. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to stack my two numbers vertically. But when I have a decimal, I don't have to worry about lining up the numbers that are in the ones place of my two numbers. So normally I would be looking at this and thinking, oh, I've got to line up the 1 here that's in the ones place with the 5 here that's in the ones place. But with the decimal numbers it works a little bit differently. So all we want to do as far as lining up is we want to line up the last digit of our decimal number lined up with the last digit of our whole number, which is the digit in the ones place. So let's get to work here. I've got my 1.85 that I'm going to write on top, and then times 25. And so as you can see, I have it lined up nice and neat with the last digit here lined up with the last digit here. And I've already counted the number of digits that I have to the right of the decimal place, and I've written that little note as 2. And so now it's at this point that I can remove my decimal point. So I'm going to just completely take this decimal away, and now once I take that decimal away, I'm now going to treat this problem just as if I were multiplying two whole numbers together. I'm going to treat this problem as if I'm multiplying 185 times 25. And I'm even going to talk about it as numbers in the ones place, numbers in the tens place, numbers in the 100s place. And for a little while I'm doing all the calculations of multiplying, I'm going to completely ignore the fact that I have any decimal in there at all. And then when I get to my answer though, I'm going to remember then that I'm working with decimals, and I'm going to place a decimal point in at the position where I will have two digits to the right of my decimal. So let's get to work on this multiplication problem, and I'm going to begin by multiplying the 185 times the number that's in my ones place, so times 5. So I start here with 5 times 5, and then I'm going to do 5 times 8, and then 5 times 1. So 5 times 5 is 25. I put the 5 of my answer 25 here in the ones place, and I regroup or carry the 2 of my answer 25 to the next highest place value column. And so then I move on and I do my 5 times 8. I have all my multiplication tables memorized, so I know that 5 times 8 equals 40, and then I need to add 2 that I carried over. So 42 is my answer to this multiplication. The 2 in the 42 is going to go here in this column, and the 4 of the 42 is going to be regrouped or carried over to the next highest place value column. And I'm going to put a little 4 here to remind me that I need to add 4 to my next multiplication problem. So now moving over to the position, to the digit in my 100s place position, I'm now going to multiply 5 times 1. 5 times 1 equals 5, add 4, 9. So the answer here is 9 that I'm going to place here in my first row of my answers. Now I'm going to move on and do the multiplication of the 2, which is actually a 20 because the 2 is in the tens place. And so I want to make sure then that underneath here where I'm going to write my answers to all my next calculations, that I place my 0 here in the ones place, because I'm not working with the ones place anymore. I've moved over and I'm working in the tens place. So I put a 0 here and then I begin my work. 2 times 5, oh, you know what I want to do? I actually want to erase my little carryovers from when I was multiplying everything by 5, because now that I'm multiplying everything by 2, I'm going to have different answers. So I'm going to have different regroup and carries. So I'm moving on here to my 2. Okay, so I've placed my 0 here in the ones place, and now I'm going to begin my calculations. 2 times 5 equals 10, and so I'm going to put the 0 of the 10 answer here, and I'm going to carry over the 1 of my 10 answer to the next highest place value column and place it there. And then I need to multiply 2 times 8. 2 times 8 equals 16. Add 1. Don't forget to add the 1. So 17 is my new answer, my next answer. The 7 of the 17 will go right here, and the 1 of the 17 will be carried over and regrouped into the next highest place value column. And my last multiplication here is to do 2 times 1, which is 2, add 1, 3, and I write my answer right here. Now I'm almost finished, but before I'm completely finished, I need to add together these two products. So I've got my 925, which is 185 times 5. And then I have my 3,700, which is 185 times 20. And I need to add those two together. So starting in the rightmost column here in the ones place, 5 plus 0 equals 5. Tens place, 2 plus 0 equals 2. In my hundreds place, 9 plus 7 equals 16. I put the 6 here and the 1 here. And in my thousands place, 3 plus 1 equals 4. So far, I've gotten all my multiplication and my addition done, but I cannot forget my last step because I'm dealing with a decimal. My last step is to go over, remember the number of decimal places that are in my original problem. I can look up here and see them. 2 digits to the right of the decimal place in my original problem. So my answer must have 2 digits to the right of the decimal place. And so I come over here and I can either put my pencil or my pen here at the very end of my answer, and I can count over 1, 2 and place my decimal point there. Or you could just eye it and see that if I put my decimal point here, I would only have 1 digit to the right of the decimal place. So I have to put my decimal point here so that I have 2 digits to the right of the decimal place. And I can see then that 1.85 times 25 equals 46.25.